The deed said vacant. The smoke in the chimney said otherwise. Wild West story. The gunshot echoed across the canyon before Claire even saw the rider. She dropped behind the wagon wheel, heart hammering, fingers fumbling for the rifle her father kept under the seat. 3 more shots cracked the air. Dust kicked up 20 feet to her left. Someone was shooting at her, and she had no idea why. She'd been driving the supply wagon back from town, same route she took every week, when the ambush started. Now the horses were screaming, trying to bolt despite the brake. Claire risked a glance around the wheel and saw movement on the ridge above. 2 men, maybe 3. Her hands shook as she raised the rifle. Then another horse appeared from nowhere, thundering down the slope at a reckless speed. The rider wore a dark hat pulled low, and he had his own rifle out. He fired twice at the ridge, and Claire heard someone yell. The rider didn't slow down. He charged straight past her wagon, drawing the gunfire away from her position. Claire didn't waste the chance. She released the brake and snapped the reins hard. The horses lurched forward, the wagon bouncing wildly over the rough ground. Behind her, more gunshots rang out. She didn't look back. She kept the horses running until her arms ached and the ranch buildings finally came into view. Her brother Danny ran out when he heard the wagon rattling in. Claire jumped down, legs trembling. She tried to explain about the ambush, about the stranger who'd saved her, but Danny was already calling for their father and the ranch hands. Within minutes, 6 men were mounted and riding back toward the canyon. They returned an hour later with the stranger. He sat easy in his saddle despite a bleeding gash across his left arm. His hat still shadowed most of his face, but Claire could see a strong jaw and calm eyes that seemed too old for someone who couldn't be past 30. Her father, Henry Parker, gestured for the man to dismount. The stranger did, moving with a slight wince. Henry offered his hand. The stranger shook it briefly. "What's your name?" Henry asked. "Jack Monroe," the stranger said. His voice was quiet, almost gentle. "You saved my daughter's life," Henry said. "Those men were the Keller gang. They've been hitting wagons for months. You took a bullet for someone you don't even know." Jack shrugged with his good shoulder. Seemed like the right thing to do. Claire stepped forward. She'd been watching from the porch, trying to understand why someone would risk their life for a stranger. In her world, everything had a price. People didn't just help. They calculated, they bargained, they expected something in return. Her family had learned that the hard way, when the bank threatened foreclosure and their neighbors suddenly became scarce. "You're hurt," she said. "Let me clean that wound." Jack looked at her properly for the first time. His eyes were gray, and there was something careful in them, like he was used to keeping his distance. "I'll manage," he said. "Nonsense," Henry said. "You'll stay for dinner at least. It's the least we can do." Jack hesitated, and Claire saw the instinct to refuse, but then he nodded, just once. "Much obliged," he said. Inside, Claire heated water and gathered clean cloth while her mother fussed over setting another place at the table. Jack sat stiffly in the kitchen chair, looking uncomfortable with the attention. When Claire approached with the basin, he started to wave her off, but she gave him a look that stopped him. "Hold still," she said. She cleaned the wound carefully. It was deep but clean. The bullet had grazed him rather than lodging in the muscle. Jack didn't flinch, didn't make a sound, even when she had to press hard to stop the bleeding. His jaw just tightened slightly. "You didn't have to do that," she said quietly. "Risk yourself for me." Jack was silent for a moment. Then he said, "Maybe where you come from, people need a reason to help." "Where I come from, you just do it." Claire tied off the bandage. She wanted to argue, to tell him that the world didn't work that way, that kindness was a luxury most people couldn't afford. But something in his calm certainty made her hold her tongue. At dinner, Henry asked Jack where he was headed. Jack said he was looking for work, drifting mostly. Henry and Danny exchanged glances. They'd been short-handed since 2 ranch hands quit last month, scared off by the Keller gang's threats. "We could use another man," Henry said, "if you're interested." Jack considered this. "The pay?" he asked. Henry named a figure. It was fair, maybe even generous, given the danger. Jack nodded. "I'll stay on for a month," he said. "See how it works?" After dinner, Claire walked Jack out to the bunkhouse. The night was cool, stars sharp overhead. She wanted to say something, to explain the weight that had settled in her chest the moment he'd ridden down that slope to save her. But she didn't have words for it. "Thank you," she finally managed. Jack looked at her, and for a second, something shifted in his expression. Then it was gone. "Get some rest," he said. "Tomorrow comes early on a ranch." She watched him disappear into the bunkhouse, and she knew with absolute certainty that Jack Monroe had just changed everything. She owed him her life, and in her world, that meant something. That meant everything. Whether he wanted it or not, whether he understood it or not, she was bound to him now. And Claire Parker always paid her debts. Jack Monroe woke before dawn, a bit more than necessity. The bunkhouse was quiet except for the snoring of Danny Parker in the far bunk. Jack dressed quickly, strapped on his gun belt, and stepped outside. The ranch was still dark, but the sky was beginning to lighten in the east. He'd forgotten how peaceful mornings could be on a ranch, before the day's work swallowed everything. He headed to the barn to check the horses. Movement near the corral caught his eye. Claire was there, already dressed for riding, checking the hooves of a gray mare. She looked up when she heard his boots on the hard ground. "You're up early," he said. "Could say the same about you," she replied. She straightened, wiping her hands on her pants. "I'm riding out to check the north fence line. Some of the posts were loose last week." "That's dangerous," Jack said, "especially alone." "Not with the Keller gang still out there." Claire's expression hardened. "I've been doing this job since I was 15, she said. "I don't need protection." Jack held up his hands. "Not saying you do, just saying it makes sense to have someone watch your back. I'll come with you." She studied him for a long moment, and Jack had the uncomfortable feeling she was seeing right through him. Finally, she nodded. "Saddle the bay," she said. "We leave in 10 minutes." They rode out as the sun broke over the horizon, painting the scrubland in shades of gold and amber. Claire set a hard pace, and Jack followed, watching her handle her horse with easy confidence. She wasn't like the ranch women he'd known before, content to stay near the house. Claire moved through this rough country like she owned it. The north fence line ran along a dry creek bed, miles from the main ranch. Several posts were indeed loose, the wire sagging in places. Claire dismounted and pulled tools from her saddlebag. Jack did the same, and they worked in silence, resetting posts and tightening wire. After an hour, Claire straightened and wiped sweat from her forehead. "You don't talk much," she observed. Jack hammered another post into place. "Don't have much to say," he replied. "Most men can't shut up," she said. "They always want to tell you about themselves, about all the things they've done. You're different." Jack didn't respond. He moved to the next post. Claire followed. "Why'd you really help me yesterday?" she asked. "The truth." Jack paused, hammer in hand. He looked at her, at those sharp eyes that demanded honesty. "I saw someone in trouble," he said. "I helped. That's all." "That's not all," Claire said. "You could have been killed." "Those were experienced gunmen. You rode right into their line of fire without hesitation." "That's not normal behavior." Jack set down the hammer. He chose his words carefully. "Where I come from, you help when you can. It's how people survive. You don't calculate. You don't weigh the risks. You just do what's right."
"And where is that?" Claire asked. "Where you come from?"
Jack's face closed off. "Doesn't matter," he said. "It's gone now." Claire watched him return to work, and she felt that weight in her chest grow heavier. He was running from something, that much was clear, but he'd still stopped to save her. That contradiction fascinated her. They finished the fence repairs by noon. Claire suggested they water the horses at a spring another mile north. Jack agreed, though something about the way she said it made him cautious. She was leading them somewhere specific. The spring was in a small grove of cottonwood trees, a rare bit of green in the harsh landscape. But as they approached, Jack saw fresh tracks in the soft ground. Several horses, probably from this morning. He held up a hand, and Claire stopped. "What is it?" she whispered. "Someone was here recently," Jack said. "Could be nothing. Could be something." They dismounted and approached carefully, leading their horses. The spring looked peaceful, water bubbling up clear and cold. But then Jack saw it, a burned-out campfire that was still faintly warm. Cigarette butts, empty whiskey bottles, and horse droppings that couldn't be more than a few hours old. "The Keller gang," Claire breathed. "They're using this as a camp." Jack nodded. "We need to tell your father. This is too close to the ranch." They mounted quickly and headed back, moving fast but carefully. Jack kept scanning the ridges, every sense alert. Halfway home, he spotted dust rising in the distance, riders moving parallel to them. "We've got company," he said quietly. Claire saw it too. Her face went pale but determined. "Can we outrun them?" she asked. "Not with them already that close," Jack said. "We need to find cover." There was a rocky outcrop a quarter-mile ahead. They made for it at a gallop, the horses straining. Behind them, the riders changed direction, now openly pursuing. Jack counted 5 of them. Not good odds. They reached the outcrop and scrambled behind the rocks, pulling the horses with them. Jack yanked his rifle from its scabbard. Claire did the same. The riders closed in, slowing when they saw their quarry had found cover. One man rode forward, hands held up in a mock gesture of peace. Moses, he was lean and weathered, with a scar running down his left cheek. Jack recognized the type, a man who'd learned cruelty young and perfected it over years. "Well now," the man called out, "looks like we got Henry Parker's little girl, and some stranger. You're the one who shot at us yesterday, aren't you?" Jack didn't answer. He kept his rifle trained on the man's chest. The man grinned. "Name's Roy Keller. Maybe you heard of me. This is my territory. Anyone passing through pays a toll. Yesterday you interfered with business. Today you're trespassing. So here's how this works. You leave the girl and ride away, or we kill you both and take her anyway." Claire's hands tightened on her rifle. Jack could feel her tension, her anger. He spoke quietly, just for her. "When I start shooting, you mount up and ride. Don't look back. Don't stop."
"I'm not leaving you," she hissed.
"This isn't a discussion," Jack said. "You need to get word to your father. That's more important than both of us." Before Claire could argue, Roy Keller's patience ran out. He signaled his men, and they spread out, surrounding the outcrop. Jack counted the seconds, calculating angles and distances. Then he made his move. He stood up and fired 3 rapid shots. One man fell from his saddle. Another horse reared, throwing its rider. Roy Keller dove for cover, cursing. In the chaos, Jack shoved Claire toward her horse. "Go!" he shouted. Claire hesitated one fatal second, torn between fleeing and fighting. Then she saw the determination in Jack's eyes, the absolute certainty that he would die to buy her time. She mounted and kicked her horse into a run, tears of fury and fear streaming down her face. Jack provided covering fire, keeping the gang pinned down. He knew he was a dead man. 5 against 1 was suicide. But if Claire made it home, if she warned her father, then maybe it would mean something. He heard horses behind him, but too close, too fast. He spun, expecting to see Keller's men, but instead he saw Danny Parker and 4 ranch hands thundering toward the outcrop, rifles blazing. Henry had sent them to check on Claire when she didn't return on time. The tide turned instantly. Keller's gang was caught between 2 fires. 2 more men went down. Roy Keller himself took a bullet in the shoulder and barely managed to retreat with his remaining men, cursing and bleeding. Danny reached Jack's position, grinning despite the danger. "Guess we got here just in time," he said. Jack reloaded his rifle, hands steady. "Appreciate it," he said. They rode back to the ranch together, arriving just after Claire. She had been pacing the yard, her face white with worry. When she saw Jack alive and riding with her brother, relief crashed over her so powerfully she had to grip the porch railing to stay upright. That evening, after the ranch hands had been posted as sentries and the wounded had been tended, Henry Parker called a meeting in the main house. Jack sat quietly while Henry paced, his face troubled. "The Keller gang knows about the spring now," Henry said. "They know our patrol routes. They'll come for us eventually, probably in force." "We can't defend this ranch against a sustained attack. We could ask the sheriff for help," Danny suggested. Henry shook his head. "Sheriff's office is 2 days away. By the time they got here, we'd be dead or burned out. No, we need to handle this ourselves." "Or we take the fight to them," Jack said quietly. Everyone turned to look at him. Henry frowned. "What are you suggesting?" he asked. "They're camped at that spring," Jack said, "or nearby. They think they have the advantage. What if we hit them first, before they're ready?"
"That's suicide," Danny said. "There are at least a dozen of them."
"Not if we're smart about it," Jack said. "We don't fight them straight up. We ambush them, scatter them, make them think we have more men than we do. They're bullies, not soldiers. They'll break if you hit them hard enough." Henry studied Jack with new respect. "You've done this before," he said. Jack met his gaze. "I've fought before, yes." Claire spoke up from her corner. "It could work," she said, "but we'd need someone who knows tactics, who can lead the men." She looked at Jack. "Someone like you." Jack wanted to refuse. He'd come here to escape violence, to find some peace. But he saw the hope in their faces, the desperation, and he knew that if he didn't help, these good people would die. Henry Parker had given him a job. Claire had looked at him like he was more than just a drifter. They'd shown him kindness. "I'll do it," Jack said. "But we do this my way."
"No one takes unnecessary risks. We get in, hit hard, and get out."
Agreed. Henry extended his hand.
Agreed.
They spent the rest of the night planning. Jack drew maps in the dirt outside, showing where to position men, where to create distractions, how to use the terrain. Danny and the ranch hands listened with growing confidence. This stranger knew what he was doing. Claire caught Jack alone near midnight. He was checking his guns, methodically cleaning and loading each one. "You don't have to do this," she said. "You could ride out tonight. No one would blame you." Jack looked up at her. "Yes, they would," he said. "I would. This isn't your fight," Claire insisted. Jack set down his revolver. He spoke carefully, trying to make her understand. "Your father gave me work when I needed it. You trusted me enough to ride out alone with me. Your brother risked his life to save mine today. Maybe where you come from, those things don't matter. But where I come from, they mean everything." Claire felt something crack open inside her chest. She'd spent years believing that every action required calculation, that kindness was just another transaction. But Jack Monroe operated on an entirely different principle. He helped because it was right. He fought because he'd been shown decency. In his world, it was just kindness. But watching him prepare to risk his life for her family, Claire finally understood. In her world, it was a debt that bound them both, and she was beginning to realize she didn't want it to be just a debt. She wanted it to be something more. The raid on the Keller gang's camp happened 3 nights later under a moonless sky. Jack had spent the intervening days scouting, learning every approach to the spring, every escape route, every possible complication. He moved like a ghost through the scrubland, and Claire, who insisted on accompanying him despite his objections, learned to move quietly beside him. On the second scouting trip, they lay on their bellies on a ridge overlooking the camp. Claire counted 11 men below, cooking dinner over open fires, drinking, playing cards. They looked relaxed, confident. They had no idea anyone was watching. Jack studied their positions, their weapons, their habits. He whispered his observations to Claire, and she memorized every detail. She noticed he never questioned her presence, never suggested she should stay behind with the women. He treated her like a partner, someone capable and trusted. It was a new feeling, and she found she liked it. On the 3rd night, as they prepared to leave for the raid, Claire's mother, Martha, pulled her aside. Martha was a small woman with steel in her spine, and her eyes were worried. "You don't have to go," Martha said. "Let the men handle this." Claire kissed her mother's cheek. "I know how to shoot," she said, "and Jack will need every gun we have." "That man," Martha said quietly. "He means something to you."
It wasn't a question. Claire didn't deny it.
"He saved my life," she said. "Now I'm going to help save his."
The raiding party consisted of Jack, Claire, Danny, and 5 ranch hands. They left the ranch at midnight, riding slowly to conserve the horses' energy. Jack had been clear about the plan. They would surround the camp, wait for his signal, then open fire from 4 directions simultaneously. The goal wasn't to kill everyone, just to break their nerve, make them scatter. They reached the area around 3 in the morning. The camp was quiet, most of the gang sleeping. 2 sentries sat by the dying fires, but they looked half asleep themselves. Jack positioned his people carefully, using hand signals Claire had learned to interpret. She took her spot behind a fallen log 30 yards from the nearest tent. The wait was agonizing. Claire's heart hammered so hard she thought the sentries might hear it. She kept her rifle trained on the camp, finger resting beside the trigger, not on it. Jack had taught her that. You don't put your finger on the trigger until you're ready to shoot. Jack's signal came as a whistle that sounded like a night bird. Claire fired at the fire, scattering sparks and logs. Around the camp, 7 other rifles opened up simultaneously. The effect was devastating. Men stumbled from tents, confused and panicking. Bullets kicked up dirt and punched through canvas. Someone was screaming. Horses whinnied in terror. Roy Keller emerged from the largest tent, gun in hand, bellowing orders. But his men were breaking. 2 of them mounted horses and rode hard into the darkness. 3 more ran on foot, abandoning their gear. Keller fired wildly toward the ridge, but he was shooting blind. Jack's voice cut through the chaos, shouting at the gang members. You're surrounded. Drop your guns and you live. Fight and you die. For a moment it could have gone either way. Then one of Keller's men threw down his rifle and raised his hands. Another did the same. The dominoes fell quickly after that. Within 5 minutes, 7 men stood with hands up, disarmed and defeated. Roy Keller was not among them. He'd slipped away during the confusion, along with 2 others. Jack had expected this. He'd positioned Danny and 2 ranch hands specifically to track runners. Claire helped secure the prisoners while Jack questioned them. "Where's Keller going?" he demanded. One of the men, younger than the others and clearly terrified, spoke up. "He's got a hideout in the Black Rock Canyon, 2 days north. He keeps his money there, everything he's stolen. He'll regroup and come back with more men." Jack exchanged glances with Henry Parker, who'd ridden up with the wagon to transport prisoners. "This isn't over," Henry said grimly. Jack nodded. "It won't be over until we finish it. But we hurt them tonight. They'll think twice before coming after your ranch again." They loaded the prisoners into the wagon and headed back to the ranch. Dawn was breaking, painting the sky in shades of pink and orange. Claire rode beside Jack, exhaustion and adrenaline mixing in her veins. "That went well," she said. Jack's face was shadowed, troubled. "We got lucky," he said. "If they'd been more alert, if Keller had been a better leader, it could have gone very differently. But it didn't," Claire pointed out. "Your plan worked, this time," Jack said. "But Keller's still out there, and now he's angry. Men like him don't let things go." Claire studied his profile in the growing light. She'd noticed something during the raid, the way Jack moved, the way he gave orders, the absolute confidence with which he handled violence. This wasn't a man who'd learned to fight out of necessity. This was a man who'd been trained. "You were a soldier," she said, "weren't you?" Jack was silent for a long moment. Then he said, "Once. A long time ago." "What happened?" Claire asked gently. Jack's jaw tightened. "I made mistakes," he said. "People died because of my decisions. When the war ended, I couldn't go back to who I'd been before. So I drifted. And now," Claire asked. Jack looked at her, really looked at her, and something shifted in his expression. "Now, I don't know," he admitted. "I thought I wanted to be left alone. But your family, this place, it reminds me of something I lost. Something I didn't think I could have again." "What's that?" Claire whispered. "Home," Jack said simply. They rode the rest of the way in silence, but it was a different kind of silence now. Something had changed between them during that long night. Claire had seen Jack in action, had witnessed his courage and his competence. And Jack had allowed her to see past his carefully maintained walls. Back at the ranch, they delivered the prisoners to a locked barn to await the sheriff. Henry shook Jack's hand. "You saved us," he said. "All of us. Name your price." Jack shook his head. "I don't want money," he said. "Just the job you already gave me if it's still available." Henry clapped him on the shoulder. "It's yours as long as you want it." As the ranch settled into the exhausted rhythm of post-action, Claire found Jack in the barn, tending to his horse. She approached quietly and he looked up, unsurprised. He always seemed to know when she was near. "Thank you," she said, "for everything." Jack set down the brush he'd been using. "You don't have to keep thanking me," he said. "I know," Claire said, "but I want you to understand something. When you saved me on that road, I thought it was just chance, a stranger being kind. But it's more than that now. You've become part of this place." "Part of us," she paused, gathering courage. "Part of me." Jack's expression was unreadable. "Claire," he said slowly, "I'm not a good man to tie yourself to. I've got things in my past, things I can't outrun." "I'm not asking you to be perfect," Claire said. "I'm just asking you to stay." Jack wanted to. He wanted it so badly it hurt. But he knew what he was, what he'd been. He was a killer who'd learned to hide it behind quiet manners and hard work. Men like Roy Keller would keep coming, drawn to violence like moths to flame. And eventually, Jack's past would catch up with him. But looking at Claire, at the hope and determination in her eyes, he found he couldn't say no. Not yet. Not today. "I'll stay," he said. "As long as I can." Claire smiled, and it transformed her face from pretty to beautiful. "That's all I'm asking," she said. 2 days later, word came from town. Roy Keller had been spotted in Black Rock Canyon, just as the prisoner had said. He was recruiting new men, spreading word that he had a score to settle with the Parker Ranch. The sheriff sent a deputy with a warning. Keller was planning something big. Jack knew what he had to do. He couldn't wait for Keller to come to them. The man had to be stopped permanently, or the Parker family would never be safe. And that meant going into Black Rock Canyon, a place even the law avoided. That evening, over dinner, "I'm going after Keller," he said, alone. "The hell you are," Danny said immediately. "We're not letting you ride into that canyon by yourself." Jack shook his head. "Keller knows all your faces. He doesn't know mine, not well. I can get close, finish this quietly. If all of us go, it's a war. People die in wars." Henry frowned. "And if you go alone, you die. We're not letting that happen." "It's not your decision," Jack said, though he said it gently. "This is what I do, what I'm good at. Trust me." Claire had been silent throughout the discussion, her face pale. Now she spoke, her voice steady despite the fear Jack could see in her eyes. "If you're going, I'm going with you." "Absolutely not," Jack said. "You need someone to watch your back," Claire insisted. Someone who knows the country. I've been to Black Rock Canyon. You haven't. Jack started to argue, but Henry held up a hand. She's right, Henry said. You need a guide. And Claire's the best rider we have. If things go wrong, she can get out fast. Jack looked at Claire, at the determination set in every line of her body. He knew that look. She wouldn't be dissuaded. Fine, he said finally. But you do exactly what I say. No arguments, no hesitation. Agreed. Agreed, Claire said. They left before dawn the next morning, carrying light packs and extra ammunition. The ride to Black Rock Canyon took 2 days through increasingly rough country. They traveled carefully, watching for scouts or sentries. Keller would be paranoid now, expecting retaliation. On the second evening, they made a cold camp in a ravine and ate dried beef without speaking. Jack cleaned his guns while Claire checked their supplies. The routine was comfortable now, familiar. They'd fallen into an easy partnership over the past weeks. Jack, Claire said suddenly, if something goes wrong tomorrow, if we don't both make it out, don't, Jack said. I need to say this, Claire insisted. You've changed my life. Before you came, I thought the world was just transactions, debts, and payments. But you showed me something different. You showed me that people can be good just because. That kindness exists without expectation of return. She moved closer to him in the dim light. You've given me more than you know. And whatever happens tomorrow, I want you to know that I don't see this as a debt anymore. I see it as a choice. I'm here because I want to be. Because I choose you. Jack's careful control cracked. He reached for her, and she came into his arms without hesitation. They held each other in the gathering darkness. Two people who'd found something unexpected in a harsh world. I'm going to get you home safe, Jack promised. Whatever it takes. I know, Claire said, but just in case, I wanted you to know. They held each other until the stars came out, and Jack allowed himself to believe, just for a moment, that maybe he could have this. Maybe he could have a home, a future, someone to love. Maybe his past didn't have to define everything. Then morning came, and with it the final reckoning. Black Rock Canyon earned its name from the dark stone that lined its walls, volcanic rock that seemed to swallow light. Jack and Claire left their horses hidden in a side gulch and approached on foot, moving from cover to cover. Jack had explained the plan. They would scout first, locate Keller, and then Jack would handle it. Claire's job was to stay back, stay safe, and be ready to run if things went wrong. The hideout was a collection of buildings wedged into a box canyon, accessible only through a narrow passage. Jack counted 8 men in the camp, including Roy Keller. They looked nervous, jumpy, constantly checking the approaches. Good. That meant they were scared. Jack waited until mid-afternoon when the sun was at its hottest and then grew lazy. He left Claire with the rifles on a ledge overlooking the camp. If anyone comes at me from behind, you shoot them, he told her. Don't hesitate. She nodded, her face pale but resolute. Be careful, she said. Jack slipped into the canyon, moving like smoke, using every bit of cover. He'd done this before, infiltrated enemy camps, eliminated threats. The skills came back easily, muscle memory from a life he'd tried to leave behind. He reached the first building undetected and paused, listening. 2 men inside, talking about cards and whiskey. Jack moved past them. Keller was his target, everything else was secondary. He found Keller in the largest building, studying maps spread across a rough table. The outlaw was alone, for once, planning his next move. Jack stepped inside, gun drawn. Keller looked up, and shock flashed across his scarred face. You, he said, the stranger from the Parker Ranch. Jack closed the door behind him. It's over, he said. Your gang is scattered, your camp is destroyed. Walk away now, leave this territory, and you live. Keller's hand inched toward his gun. You think I'm scared of one man, he said. You should be, Jack replied quietly. For a moment they measured each other. Then Keller moved, fast, going for his gun. But Jack was faster. He fired once, the shot echoing in the small space. Keller stumbled back, clutching his shoulder, his gun clattering to the floor. The shot brought Keller's men running. Jack heard boots pounding toward the building. He grabbed Keller, hauled him up, and pressed his gun to the outlaw's head. One more step and he dies, Jack called out. The door burst open, but the men froze when they saw their leader held hostage. Jack backed toward the rear window, dragging Keller with him. Nobody moves, he said. I'm walking out of here. He comes with me. Anyone tries to stop me, he dies first. It might have worked. But Keller, desperate and enraged, twisted suddenly and drove his elbow into Jack's ribs. Jack's grip loosened for just a second, and Keller broke free, diving for his gun. Jack had no choice. He fired again, and this time he didn't aim for the shoulder. Keller fell and didn't move. The other men scattered, some diving for cover, others running for the canyon exit. Jack went through the window, rolling and coming up shooting. He hit one man who'd drawn on him, sent two others scrambling for their horses. Then he ran, heading for where he'd left Claire. Bullets kicked up dust around him. He heard men shouting, organizing a pursuit. He'd killed their leader, and now they wanted blood. He reached the gulch where Claire waited. She had the rifles ready and fired twice at pursuing men, forcing them back. Jack grabbed his rifle, and together they retreated to where they'd left the horses. They mounted and rode hard, Keller's remaining men close behind. 6 riders, maybe 7, all firing wildly. Jack and Claire kept low, using the terrain, winding through ravines and over ridges. Jack's mind raced, calculating angles and distances. They needed to thin their pursuers or lose them completely. "There," Claire shouted, pointing at a narrow pass ahead. "It leads to broken ground. If we can get through, they'll have to come single file." Jack nodded, and they pushed their horses harder. They reached the pass and thundered through, the walls closing in on both sides. Behind them, the pursuers followed, but as Claire had predicted, they had to string out, single file in the narrow space. Jack and Claire burst out the other side into a maze of boulders and ravines. They split up by unspoken agreement, each taking a different path. The pursuers followed, shouting to each other, trying to coordinate, but in the broken ground, they lost cohesion. Jack circled back, coming up behind 2 riders who'd gone after Claire. He fired carefully, precise shots that dropped one horse and sent the other rider tumbling. Claire heard the shots and understood. She doubled back, catching another pursuer in a crossfire. The remaining men lost their nerve. They'd signed on to bully ranchers and rob wagons, not fight trained killers in broken country. 3 of them broke off, riding hard for anywhere that wasn't here. The last man dismounted and raised his hands in surrender. Jack approached cautiously, gun ready. Claire covered him from a rise. "Where's the money?" Jack asked. "The money Keller stole." The man, barely out of his teens and clearly terrified, pointed back toward the canyon, hidden in the main building. "Under the floorboards. I'll show you, just don't kill me." Jack considered this. Then he said, "You've got one chance to do something right in your miserable life. You ride to the nearest town, you tell the sheriff where to find that money, and you tell him Roy Keller is dead. Then you ride far away and you never come back. Understand?" The man nodded frantically. "Thank you," he gasped. Jack let him go. He watched the young outlaw ride away, then turned to find Claire had come down from the rise. She looked at him with something like wonder. "You let him go," she said.
"He's just a kid," Jack replied. "He made bad choices."
"Maybe he'll make better ones now." Claire smiled. "In your world, it's kindness," she said softly. "I'm starting to understand that." They rode back toward the ranch, taking their time now, letting the horses rest. The sun was setting, painting the sky in brilliant shades of orange and red. Jack felt something unfamiliar in his chest, something he eventually recognized as peace. "You know," Claire said as they rode, "I've been thinking about what you said. About home." Jack glanced at her. "What about it?" "I think home isn't a place," Claire said. "I think it's people. It's choosing to stay somewhere, with someone, because that's where you want to be. Not because you owe them. Not because you have to, but because you want to." Jack was quiet, thinking about this. Then he said, "And is that what you're choosing?" "The ranch. Your family. Them," Claire said. "And you. If you'll stay." Jack looked at her, really looked at her. This woman who'd somehow seen past every defense he'd built, who'd understood what he'd been trying to say when he didn't even understand it himself. In her world, what he'd done had been a debt, but somewhere along the way, it had become something more. Something freely given on both sides. "I'll stay," he said, "for as long as you want me." Claire reached across the space between their horses and took his hand. "Then you'll stay forever," she said, "because I'm not letting you go." They rode home together as the sun set and the stars came out, 2 people who'd found in each other exactly what they'd been missing. Jack Monroe had been running from his past, but he'd found a future instead. And Claire Parker had believed that kindness was just another transaction, but she'd learned it could be something much more powerful. The Parker Ranch came into view as full dark settled over the land. Lights shone in the windows, warm and welcoming. Henry and Martha would be waiting, worried, but hopeful. Danny and the ranch hands would want to hear what happened. There would be stories to tell, plans to make, a life to build. But for now, In this moment between the danger behind them and the future ahead, Jack and Claire rode side by side, hands joined, bound not by debt but by choice. In his world, helping her had been simple kindness. In hers, it had been a debt that demanded repayment. But together they discovered something neither of them had expected. They discovered that the best bonds weren't forged in obligation or transaction. They were forged in trust, in courage, in the choice to stand beside someone not because you owed them, but because you couldn't imagine being anywhere else. Jack Monroe had saved Claire Parker's life on a dusty road under gunfire. But in the end, they'd saved each other. They'd given each other something far more valuable than survival. They'd given each other a reason to stop running, to stop calculating, to stop treating the world like a ledger that always had to balance. They'd given each other home. The wedding took place 6 months later on a spring morning when the wildflowers were blooming across the rangeland. It was a simple ceremony, just family and the ranch hands, held in the yard under a sky so blue it hurt to look at. Martha cried happy tears. Henry gave Claire away with obvious pride. Danny stood beside Jack as his best man, and the bond between them had grown from respect into genuine brotherhood. Jack had spent those 6 months learning every inch of the ranch, working alongside the Parker family, proving that his decision to stay was more than words. He'd helped bring in the cattle, mended fences, broke new horses, and slowly, carefully, allowed himself to believe that this could last. Claire had spent those same months learning who Jack Monroe really was beneath the quiet exterior. She discovered his dry sense of humor, the way he would sometimes wake in the night with memories he wouldn't discuss, how gentle he was with injured animals, how he treated everyone with the same careful respect regardless of their station. She'd fallen in love not with the man who'd saved her life, but with the man who'd chosen to build a life beside her. After the ceremony, as the sun climbed toward noon, Claire found Jack standing alone near the barn, looking out at the land that was now his home. She came up beside him and slipped her hand into his. Having second thoughts, she asked with a smile. Jack looked down at her, at this woman who'd seen him at his worst and his best and had chosen him anyway. Not even for a second, he said. Good, Claire said. 'Cause you're stuck with me now. Jack pulled her close. I can't think of a better place to be stuck, he said. They stood together watching the land, and Jack thought about all the choices that had led him here. The choices to help a stranger on a dangerous road. The choice to stay when he could have run. The choice to fight for people who'd shown him kindness. And finally, the choice to believe he deserved this happiness. In his world, these choices had been simple. You helped because it was right. You stayed because you'd been made welcome. You fought for people you cared about. But he understood now what Claire had been trying to tell him all along. In her world, in the world most people lived in, those choices were extraordinary. They were the kind of choices that changed everything. And maybe that was the real truth they'd both learned. Kindness could be simple. It could be just doing what was right without expecting anything in return. But it could also be powerful. It could save lives. It could build futures. It could transform two people who'd been running and hiding into two people who'd found exactly where they belonged. The guests called them back to the celebration. There was food and music and laughter. The ranch hands had pitched in to buy them a beautiful blanket as a gift. Henry gave a speech about family that left half the gathering in tears. Martha fussed over every detail, wanting everything to be perfect. But later, as the sun set and the party continued, Jack and Claire slipped away to the place where they'd first ridden together, the north fence line where she'd taken him to check for damage all those months ago. They sat on the tailgate of a wagon, shoulders touching, watching stars emerge in the darkening sky. Do you ever wonder what would have happened if you'd ridden past that day? Claire asked. If you'd decided it wasn't your problem? Jack considered this. Every day, he admitted. And every day I'm grateful I stopped. Me too, Claire said. She leaned against him. I was so angry at first, you know? At myself for owing you. I didn't want to be in anyone's debt. And now, Jack asked. Now I understand, Claire said. It was never about debt. It was about two people finding each other exactly when they needed to. You were running from your past. I was trapped by my belief that everything had to be earned or paid for.
We freed each other.
Jack thought about this. You know what's strange? He said. I came here thinking I'd work for a month and then move on. I had no plans to stay, no plans to care about anyone or let anyone care about me. But your family, they made room for me, like I'd always belonged. That's what family does, Claire said. They make room. And you're family now, really and truly. Not because of some debt or obligation, but because we choose you. Every day we choose you. Jack felt something in his chest, a warmth that had nothing to do with the evening air. I choose you too, he said quietly. All of you. This life. This place. I choose it all. They sat in comfortable silence, watching the stars wheel overhead. Somewhere in the distance, a coyote howled. The ranch lights glowed warm in the darkness. And Jack Monroe, who'd been a soldier, and then a drifter, and then a savior, and finally a husband, felt the last piece of himself settle into place. He'd spent years believing he didn't deserve peace, didn't deserve happiness, didn't deserve a home. He'd believed that his past had disqualified him from ordinary joys, but Claire and her family had taught him something different. They had taught him that everyone deserved a second chance. Everyone deserved to be chosen. Everyone deserved to find their way home. In his world had been kindness. Simple, uncomplicated, the right thing to do. In her world, it had been a debt, a weight, an obligation that had to be repaid. But together, they'd created something new. A world where kindness and choice intertwined, where helping someone wasn't about transaction, but about connection, where the bonds that held people together weren't chains, but freely given promises. They rode back to the ranch house hand in hand as the night deepened around them. Tomorrow would bring new challenges, new work, new moments to navigate together. But tonight was for celebration, for the joy of finding each other, for the profound gratitude of coming home. Jack Monroe had saved Claire Parker from bandits on a dusty road, but the real salvation, the real gift had come after, when they'd both chosen to stay, when they'd both chosen to trust, when they'd both chosen to believe that maybe, just maybe, the world could be kinder than they'd thought. And in the end, that choice, that belief, that trust, it had made all the difference. It had transformed a debt into love, obligation into family, and two wounded souls into two whole people who'd found exactly what they'd been searching for all along. They'd found each other, and they'd found home.